So in addition to being short a chair, we have two more members that we need before we hit quorum. So, and the chair does not count. He's not a voting member. So we're waiting for two additional voting members. It sounds like, oh, I think I see Anna. So there's one. Perfect. And we think she's here, just trying to get up to the seventh floor.
Good morning, members and the public. We have one more member who is waiting to arrive so that we have a quorum. And as soon as that member arrives in just a few minutes, our staff member will meet them down in the lobby and bring them up. So thank you for your patience. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Before we begin our meeting, I'll ask our interpreters to provide instructions on how to use the interpretation feature.
Announcement from interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, world, and select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you are in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, el globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, good morning. Welcome to the February 10th, 2025 Military Working Group meeting. My name is Councilmember Steve Goebel from the City of El Cajon, and I'll be kicking off today's meeting. Before we begin, though, I'd like to ask Michael, who is serving as our clerk, to confirm we have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Michael. Before we begin with our agenda items, I want to review the meeting process, and both for the working group members as well as the members of the public who wish to participate. The amount of time allowed for each verbal public comment will be limited to 2 minutes, and this allows us to hear from as many people as possible and to complete our business while we still have a quorum. In order to speak on any agenda item, members of the public will need to submit a speaker slip for each agenda item in advance, and virtual public will need to raise their hand in the Zoom platform. For working group members, when you'd like to speak, just raise your hand and I'll call on you then. Now, would you take a moment with me and join in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. All right, excuse me. Item number 1, the chair's report. Public comments, committee member comments. We will now continue with, well, the chair's report. Let's see, that will do that after public comments. Public comments first. We'll now ask if there are any members of the public who have non-agenda public comments. Do we have any comments from the public, clerk?
We have no public comment, Chair. Oh, wait, we do have one from a phone number ending in 978.
Okay, go ahead when you're ready, caller.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Max Fiegel. I sent in an email over the weekend, but I don't think it was in time to be presented before. I wanted to ask about increase of public transportation options to Naval Air Station North Island. Per your guys' report, we have 35,000 people about to be impacted by various return to office efforts, and the bridge traffic is already difficult to manage. I believe the easiest method to implement some increased accessible transit would be restoration of the ferry service from Broadway Pier that used to take people directly from Broadway Pier to the Naval Air Station. Given that the Broadway Pier is accessible, it's about a block away from Santa Fe Depot. That would open up a lot of options for public transportation. That is what I wanted to make a comment about.
Okay, thank you very much. By the way, in a tour that we had at NAS North Island last year, the same sentiment was expressed to have the ferry returned. It would help alleviate traffic. So I'm glad to hear your support as well. Okay, let's go on to the chair's report. A couple of items today. In January, the SANDAG Board of Directors elected new leadership. Solana Beach Mayor Lisa Huebner will serve a 2-year term as the chair. San Diego City Council President Joe LaCava will serve as vice chair, and Santee Mayor John Minto was elected to serve as second vice chair. Another item, toll agencies across the state have noticed an increase in scam text messages. You may have some members of your community who may have experienced the same. I've certainly had my share as well. As a reminder, SANDAG does not send text messages for toll transactions. If you receive a suspicious message about fast track or toll fees, please do not reply or click on any link in there. You might want to pass that on to your folks. Last Friday was staff's last day in the 401B Street office we're meeting at here today. And while some meetings will continue to be held here in the boardroom, staff will be working remotely while this space is decommissioned and in preparation for moving into the new space at West in mid-March. This Thursday at 10 a.m., this military working group will be joined by members of SANDAG's Mobility Working Group, Shoreline Preservation Working Group, Social Equity Working Group, Sustainable Communities Working Group, and Social Services Transportation Advisory Council. This meeting will be held at the San Diego Central Library downtown, not here. This meeting is in person only and will be focused on the 2025 regional plan. Staff will present the network for the 2025 plan. That will be included in the draft document. And then all members of the various working groups are invited to participate in a Q&A session with staff. Now is the time for member comments. If working group members have any comments or questions about things that are not on the agenda but good for the general order, you can raise your hand and make those at this time. Any comments, anyone? Anna.
Good morning. I just wanted to extend a thank you to SANDAG and MTS staff. Last Monday, we were directed to execute return to in-office work for the Department of Defense. And that we were to return into the office working starting today, Monday. This hasn't affected all of our installations the same. A lot of our work already was in person and people were working in person. However, for the building that we work in downtown, we have about 1,200 employees working in the building and 400 parking spots. So we had 1 week to execute this big change. Calissa Bowling and her sustainable transportation team really stood but above and beyond. They came on 2 days' notice to an all-hands meeting. They helped people with their transit route planning. They showed them where park and rides are. SANDAG provided 51 tri-transit free passes to our personnel. And Calissa's team, Erica Sari, Trevor Hill, are coming back this Wednesday and hoping to capture the large number of people who will be in person in the building to hand out more transit passes and assist with the commute. So I just truly appreciate the support from SANDAG and MTS and the whole team. It was on very short notice and we're all very grateful for it. So thank you very much. Over.
Good news. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mike.
I'll defer to David to talk about some SD-MAC initiatives, but I'm looking around and I see that the Coronado representative is not here, so I'll report as a Coronadan that we have a new city council. Council member John Duncan has was elected mayor. Mark Finley and I'll never forget what's her name. No. Carrie Downey is still on the council. So a new Amy Stewart was elected to the city council. And then because John vacated his council seat, they appointed Kelly Purvis, who has been a city staff member for some time, and she was appointed to fill the additional seat. So a substantial change in Coronado City Council. And Tony Winnie, who is normally present at this meeting, has left the city, so that seat hasn't been refilled yet.
Okay, thanks for the update. David?
Good morning, everyone. As we head into the new year here, SDMAC has launched our 2025 legislative agenda that I want to briefly share. There are three pillars. The first pillar is taking care of our military veterans and family. And the goal of that is to retain veterans in California. Over the last 20 years, we've lost half our veterans to other states. We've gone from 1.2 million to 600,000+ in the workforce. They're going to states like Texas, Florida, Virginia, and those states, excuse me, have established a determined strategy to attract veterans. And part of that, as you know, is the military exclusion on taxation on retirement. California is the only state in the union that fully taxes military retirement. There is a lot of progress in this area. There are two bills under consideration, AB 53 and AB 1, as well as the draft governor's budget bill. There's language in there, and we're trying to help influence that to change that dynamic. But there are a number of other issues to include childcare, housing, reciprocity of licensing for military spouses, all of which contributes to a family's choice to either stay or not stay in California. So that's our first pillar. The second pillar is about military readiness, and certainly force structure is part of that, but a lot of that objective centers around base infrastructure, resiliency, and of course, much of the funding is federal funding that supports base infrastructure, but it's not exclusive. The state recently funded Camp Pendleton, I think it was $43 million for battery storage, which is good for both the base and the community. So we're trying to help influence that as well. And lastly, our third pillar is to create an innovation economy that's centered around defense. In San Diego, we have the nexus of world-class universities, large military presence, and businesses that want to participate in that kind of environment. So we've established a task force to figure out how we can do innovation better and attract more private sector funding to San Diego. Of the, I think it was $81 billion in innovation funding that came to California, San Diego got $5 billion of that, and defense-related activities got 0.34%. So we're a drop in the bucket today, and we're going to change that. And lastly, back to military retirement and family support. I have an article coming out today in the San Diego Business Journal that addresses these issues. So you can look on in the San Diego Business Journal and see that. Thank you very much.
All great info. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you all. Okay, let's move on to the next item. That is the consent items. Today's consent has two items: approval of meeting minutes from our September 9th meeting and approval of the proposed working group calendar for 2025. Again, we'll just meet when we have something to say to you, not just meet for the sake of meeting, which is a good thing. So with the consent calendar, do we have any comments from the public about this item?
We have no public comment, Chair.
All right. Any comments or questions from the working group before I ask for a motion? No? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent items? Jim, motion to approve. Anyone do a second?
Second.
Anna on the second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed and abstentions. Okay, that passes unanimously by those present. Okay, let's go on to the next item. Item number 4. SANDAG staff has 2 different studies that are thinking holistically about mobility, housing, and land use improvements in the Blue Line corridor. One study focuses specifically on mobility improvements at the San Ysidro Transit Center, which serves many people crossing between the U.S. and Mexico daily. The second study is focused on transit-oriented development opportunities or housing at the San Ysidro and Palomar trolley stations. Much-needed improvements recommended as part of these studies would benefit the many people traveling this corridor daily and potentially provide much-needed housing units. Today, we have Lizzie and Zach from SANDAG are going to present some updates on this item. You can go ahead and proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the Military Working Group for having us today. Again, Zach Hernandez and my colleague Lizzie Havey here to present. And thank you for the intro as well. I think that set us up really quick and saved me a couple lines. But we're here to present a couple updates, multiple different efforts, but they all share a common focus, a common goal of improving how we serve our South Bay and our border and our cross-border communities better with mobility and transportation, of course, but also trying to strategize improving the urban context in and around these stations with land use to kind of maximize our investments and maximize community benefit. But starting with the work that we're doing to prepare for some changes at the San Ysidro station, and just to set some context, I'll throw a couple numbers at you to get you thinking. But the first is 90,000. Every day, 365 days of the year, we have over 90,000 people crossing northbound just through the San Ysidro port of entry alone. To put that into perspective, the max capacity at Petco Park is a little less than 45,000. So imagine 2 sold-out Padre games happening every single day. That's the volume of people that we're seeing just through that one port of entry. These are our shared student populations, our families, our shared workforce that cover all sectors in the region. It's a really massive volume. 20,000 of those 90,000 total who are crossing are doing so on foot as pedestrians, and 14,000 of them are using transit, primarily the Blue Line trolley. And since 1981, since when the Blue Line first started running, San Ysidro has been and still is the kind of anchor for the regional transit system. But you wouldn't guess that by seeing kind of the layout of the site, the conditions that it's in, and the limiting factors that it's fighting against. Today, it's still that major workhorse, but it's really working against a lot, and we'll get into those things now. But to describe what it's like out there today, the words that I always or most often come back to are hectic, chaotic, especially in the peak periods, definitely super, super busy. Physically speaking, the station footprint itself is incredibly small for the amount of foot traffic and throughput that it facilitates. And the way it's also laid out, the configuration, leads to a lot of conflict points. The way I describe it is that the infrastructure out there is kind of tripping over itself, and you're forcing pedestrians to navigate a very circuitous and kind of chaotic situation. Add to that, there's a lot of physical disconnects, and you can see when you're out there that the station was never really built to handle the foot traffic, for one, and the connections to and from the station weren't really designed at the human scale. But one of the biggest deficiencies, at least for me, is that there's no room for more transit service, even if we had some ready to go tomorrow. And to this day, it's still just the Blue Line and a local bus route 906, 907 that circulates up and down the community of San Ysidro. Keep in mind, there's still the other 70,000 people of those 90,000 total who are crossing still in their personal vehicles, waiting unpredictably long wait times to do so, adding to poor air quality that the border region has to shoulder. For them, the Blue Line and the local bus routes aren't really options. And so while we obviously have a responsibility to plan for the long term, we do have an existing system that needs improvements. So with that in mind, over the last couple of years, SANDAG, MTS, City of San Diego, and Caltrans worked together to plan for more near-term improvements to the station. And so through lots of brainstorming, obviously, lots of stakeholder meetings, gathering community and stakeholder input, talking to station users, we developed some scenarios for how to get more life, more function out of this important station in the more near term, so I think the next 5 to 10 years. What we came up with essentially were some station redesign concepts, if you will, that all provide better human scale connectivity, more physical capacity for transit, trying to accommodate the needs also of the federal government, Homeland Security, CBP operations that are happening around and through the station 24/7, and also trying to keep impacts to property as minimal as possible so that we can actually turn dirt on a project like this sooner than later. But the 3 scenarios, a concept A, a concept B, a concept C, they all achieve the bullets that you see on screen just in slightly different ways. And we don't have time to get into too much detail for each one, but I think the main takeaway is that the study demonstrated that there are ways to improve the station sooner than later, but you have to be willing to move some things around. But thinking about just even shifting where the trolley platforms are by a couple hundred feet is one way, kind of a necessary first step to really unlock much needed space at the really congested station and provide really significant connectivity benefits. So this next clip kind of paints a picture of where things are now and where they might go with these near-term upgrades. So while we advance those things in the near term, we also know there is a need for a long-term, more comprehensive vision. And not just for transportation, but also potential development in and around what is a major hub already, but what can be, what kind of should be a major flagship station, something that's thought of equally as a great public space as well as a great station. And that's where the San Ysidro Mobility Hub work really comes in. And looking towards that longer term future, we know there's a possibility for even more transit connections to come to the border, more rail, more bus connections, et cetera, some of which are in or soon going to be in early planning stages. Hopefully this group can hear some updates later at a future agenda on those. But in addition to the functional aspects, the transit connections, how are folks going to get to and from those things, the future hub, the future facility is going to need a design scheme that is responsive to and reflective of the binational community that we have in the region and that uses the space, but also tapping into the creativity that we have in San Diego and Tijuana. And a development strategy that includes ways to integrate and to capitalize on and to leverage a lot of the development opportunities that are going to come along with a bigger, more long-term investment in the station. And so as we advance that near-term work beyond the concept planning that we just described and start some of the preliminary engineering, later this year, we're also going to be starting the planning and community visioning process to inform the long-term components as well. So when you look at this screen, think a phase 1 in the near term and then a phase 2 in the long term, or think Russian nesting doll when you look at this. But one important aspect that I've been hinting at is the need for a comprehensive strategy around all of it, one that includes not just the transportation components, but captures the full benefits of a better station by complementing it with land use improvements. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Lizzie to talk about another study helping us understand that.
Thanks, Zach. The Blue Line Transit-Oriented Development Study is building off these near-term infrastructure investments while providing a case study for transit-oriented development, or TOD, opportunities along the Blue Line trolley. The study also informs the long-term vision of the San Ysidro Mobility Hub that Zach was just talking about, helping to shape land use considerations, working alongside our different stakeholders. So not wanting to plan for transportation projects in a silo, the goal of the study is to plan holistically to maximize benefits of transportation investments through complementary land use strategies. We felt this was appropriate for the military working group to demonstrate process for identifying TOD and project bundling opportunities that can be replicated on federally owned land. So the Blue Line TOD study identifies opportunities for encouraging and creating TOD at and near 2 Blue Line trolley stations, San Ysidro Station in the city of San Diego and the Palomar Transit Center in the city of Chula Vista. You'll see examples for both stations throughout the presentation, but the same analysis was completed for each station. The study assesses land use, transportation, and market conditions to inform strategies for TOD implementation that highlight opportunities for potential development, community integration, and mobility improvements. Throughout the study, we worked closely with our stakeholders, the City of San Diego, Chula Vista, MTS. We conducted outreach on the study, working alongside a community-based organization, and we're making recommendations to these partners for proposed improvements to the public realm, land use updates, and policy considerations. So today, I'll just provide a quick overview over the process and key takeaways of the study. Palomar Transit Center has high ridership numbers, vacant lots, and surface parking surrounded by commercial and residential land uses. SANDAG is currently planning for a number of investments, including a trolley grade separation project and a rapid bus connecting Chula Vista to San Diego State University. Understanding these upcoming investments for Palomar Transit Center, as well as those for San Ysidro, one of our key takeaways include making recommendations to maximize benefits by leveraging public investment for land use potential and capital improvement projects through informed TOD strategies. So early on in the study, for example, we looked at how the land is utilized compared to current zoning regulations. So what you see on a scale from dark green to red is that green areas have more capacity to support a greater density than the current conditions. We set out to analyze why and make corresponding recommendations. So with initial analysis complete, we set out to measure opportunity for TOD potential to help us inform our overall report and implementation strategies. So while SANDAG doesn't have land use authority, we're working closely again with our stakeholders to provide these recommendations. So this task included utilizing a TOD index with scores for categories such as transit connectivity, walkability, bikeability, development feasibility, and community health and well-being, and their corresponding subcategories. This provides a score at the parcel level to analyze TOD potential. The next steps of the study included outlining specific recommendations for implementation strategies. So here, the slide demonstrates opportunities in San Ysidro to leverage publicly owned land to help meet our regional housing goals, while also uplifting other placemaking strategies for land use development. What we learned in this task and through our market analysis is that while we prepare or wait for the market to catch up, public agencies can invest in affordable housing, station, and public realm improvements at large. So departments within DoD may consider affordable or workforce housing near transit stations and their military bases. And this just gives an example of the process that we went through identifying some of that potential. So for next steps, I would like to emphasize this study helps make recommendations in line with our public outreach, engagement with the business communities of these areas, and in coordination with the cities. The study is exploratory in nature, demonstrating process of identifying potential for TOD with complementary mobility improvements. For example, the rendering you see is a concept highlighting the highest and best use of the area, but essentially is prototypical. However, the market analysis completed for the study can be scaled and applied throughout the study area and sub-regional level. So again, the next steps include collaborating with stakeholders like city staff and affordable housing developers, leveraging the study for the San Ysidro Mobility Hub, and further evaluate options for housing as an opportunity for transportation project mitigation, as well as exploring innovative project delivery models and financing mechanisms at the federal, state, and local level. So really what that means is how can we build transportation projects and utilize or leverage different funding sources to build more housing options at the same time. Zooming out a bit to talk about the whole picture of the different projects Zach and I just talked about, starting with the near-term improvements, the San Ysidro Transit Center improvements. So that planning study concluded in 2024, and then we'll be moving into preliminary engineering in 2025, with the environmental phase hoping to begin in 2026. And for that long-term vision, the Blue Line TOD study, the study I just talked about, really feeds into that long-term vision concepts for the San Ysidro Mobility Hub. And so the San Ysidro Mobility Hub planning will begin this year in 2025. And in 2026, you'll see draft Mobility Hub and land use development concepts, as well as the planning study concluding in 2027. And with that, we welcome any questions, comments regarding these different studies. Thank you.
Okay, Zach, Lizzie, thank you. Let's check in and see with our clerk if there's any public comments on this item.
No public comment.
No public comments. Okay, this is informational item only. Any comments from any of our members in the group? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for your presentation and the information. Okay, let's go on to the next item. Item number 5 is the airport transit connection update. Staff will present an update on the advanced planning and outreach for the airport transit connection project. Rissa, nice to see you again. We saw each other at MTS. So the floor is yours when you're ready.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I appreciate having some time to provide you an update about the airport transit connection project. We like to refer to this project as ATC for short, so you'll hear me use that throughout the presentation. Last year, our staff had updated our SANDAG Board of Directors about the fact that this project was being moved into our regional planning department to do some continued study on some of our ATC concepts and use some updated data post-pandemic for both travel and population forecast before we could complete the study and pare down the number of concepts that we would proceed with potentially implementing and environmentally clearing. So we are focused at the moment on integrating a connection between the airport and our existing regional transit system. We are no longer planning for a central mobility hub. That could have been something you were familiar with in the past, especially as our agencies were working together at the NAVWAR site long ago. We are concentrated on connecting to heavily used transit hubs like Old Town Transit Center and Santa Fe Depot for this airport transit connection link. And it's going to be able to help everyone from residents, employees, and visitors get where they need to go, use our existing transit system, help make our existing regional rail network even stronger and better connected to a service that could connect to the airport. And we're looking at both near-term and longer-term solutions, which I'll describe in this presentation. We're very fortunate to have our airport be in downtown and so close to our regional rail network and bus network. And we have various modes that we are considering for the project. All of them have pros and cons. There's no silver bullet mode when it comes to the airport transit connection, and I'll explain why. The first mode that we've been considering and doing a lot of study for is an automated people mover, or APM. You may have ridden these at airports throughout the nation. They help connect terminals to each other and could also provide a transit link to an outlying rail system like in Oakland or in San Francisco. But it comes with some challenges as we think about it for our region. It'd be a brand new mode. There's no operator identified at the moment. It would require building a brand new maintenance and storage facility dedicated to that mode, which we don't have today. And it can be difficult to find that kind of space in our urban environment. But it does provide the opportunity to have very frequent service every few minutes if that's what's complementary to our existing transit system to support it. We're also looking at extension of light rail to the airport. So it's a mode we're familiar with. It would help us to extend the trolley to other places in our region as we've planned for in our regional plan. But there's some challenges in being able to have that new trolley line interline or share track with our existing trolley lines, green and blue, within downtown, a very kind of constrained area. So we're studying some options to see how we can demonstrate how that kind of connection or service could thrive and not inhibit any of the existing services that serve downtown today. And then last but certainly not least is enhanced bus services. So making the routes 992 or the San Diego Flyer shuttle that exists today between our Old Town and Santa Fe Depot transit hubs that much better, much more frequent, but also being able to plan for bus priority, bus lanes and bus priority treatments on roads like North Harbor Drive and or Pacific Highway to get to the airport. So it could provide some lower cost, more flexible solutions to the airport and can definitely be a near-term option that we could consider. But it could have some drawbacks compared to rail in terms of people's willingness to use, considering we don't have a really kind of strong bus riding culture in San Diego yet. I want to walk you through the various modes that the connections that the various modes are making with some maps here. I know it's a little hard to see, but long story short, for the APM, we have 5 total concepts with a lot of variations. They're connecting between the airport and our major transit centers like Old Town Transit Center, various points in downtown, including Santa Fe Depot, Convention Center, the Civic Center, and also the Middletown Trolley Station and the Car Rental Center. So the reason we have various concept variations for the people mover is that we could think about aerial solutions, board tunnel, or a hybrid of the two. So we've done a lot of study already to look at the various options and feasibility for an APM connecting to all of these different places. But all of them would connect to the airport. The airport's carving out space, has saved space for a potential rail connection, whether it is a people mover or a trolley solution, to be able to terminate there. And so we have a job ahead of us to kind of pare down or reduce the number of people mover concepts that have been developed to identify what could be the most suitable out of these 13 total. On the trolley concept side, it's a little simpler. We have an existing trolley concept that would connect from 12th and Imperial Transit Center all the way up to the airport. It would share track with the trolley services today all the way through downtown, up through Little Italy, and then spur off to the west in order to arrive at the airport at an elevated state. And what we're doing right now is conducting some operational modeling to demonstrate, can we have this trolley connection do better than 15-minute service without inhibiting any of the other trolley services in downtown? Could they all operate at what would be a dream situation of 7.5 minutes, all of them, and get us to really frequent, amazing transit service in downtown and also have a connection to the airport? The variation that we're studying with this trolley concept that we're calling 6B is about a trench extension. Right now, the trolley in downtown, if you're familiar with it in Little Italy area, operates underneath the road for a couple of blocks. And we'd be studying extending that trench south all the way down to Santa Fe Depot so that an airport connection and our existing trolley lines could all benefit from an extended trench and have that separation from the roadway like we see today further north. And I have some images to kind of illustrate what we mean by this. So right now in northern Little Italy at West Hawthorne Street, light rail tracks operate in a trench underneath the road. The heavy tracks, the low sand tracks, are up on top. And so it gets some benefit from being underneath the road. And we'd be looking to determine As far down as Ash Street, just north of Santa Fe Depot, could the light rail tracks be trenched down there as well and benefit the same way it does at Grape and Hawthorne? And a lot of these roads, they're really connecting people to and from the freeway. So it could provide some benefit to be separated from vehicles while also ensuring there's safe paths of travel for people outside of cars riding bikes or walking. And just some street views of West Ash, where all of the rail right now is at grade on the road. There's pedestrian activity with housing developments and things in and around that area. One thing I'm excited to share with you is that very near term, while we are looking at longer term rail solutions, very near term, we're actively collaborating with all of our partner agencies on near term bus improvements. So ideally in time for this fall's Terminal 1 Phase A opening, we want to be able to provide a much more frequent Route 992 service and more frequent shuttle connections between Old Town and the airport. You know, something as aggressive as 10 minutes could be a game changer for anyone trying to plan their trip from all around the region. Taking the Orange Line in from El Cajon, taking the coaster down from North County, or using the South Bay Blue Line option to get to downtown and providing a seamless connection to either bus service connecting to either of those transit hubs. So we're working with all of our partner agencies on what it would take to make that happen. Operation dollars can be hard to find, and so we're trying to be creative with our solutions and put our thinking caps on to see how we can make that happen. And then more midterm, ideally in time or soon after Terminal 1's Phase B opening, we'd be looking to design and implement bus priority solutions. And we're looking at 2 corridors where bus lanes, signal improvements, and supporting treatments could be done. North Harbor Drive between downtown and the airport, but also the entirety of Pacific Highway. Pacific Highway is a really important corridor, not just for the airport transit connection, but because of all that's going on that you all are very familiar with the Navwar development and the fact that MCRD is adjacent to that corridor, and it could provide a real opportunity for the connection between airport and bus service to be as best as it could be, but also thinking ahead to all the types of connections and priorities that shuttles connecting those types of destinations could benefit from. So we're keeping both corridors in mind as we think about near-term bus solutions. And just a map showing the corridors of travel for those bus services at both Old Town and downtown and to the airport. I mentioned how we need to pare down or reduce the number of rail concepts. That's something that we're doing on the people mover side to determine what's the shining star of the group and what makes the most sense to kind of compete, so to speak, and compare side by side with a trolley concept. Off the top, we're suggesting to eliminate those people mover concepts that really require heavy capital investment at Middletown Transit Center. And that's because we're no longer considering a central mobility hub at that location or any location really. So why invest in a direct access ramp off the freeway at that particular location? Why construct a new heavy rail platform? It doesn't make sense today. And we don't see that being a valuable investment when we're thinking about how much goes into constructing even just the people mover track and stations themselves. So then we're left with 13 remaining concepts, and we have a rubric put together whereby we can carry out some demographic analysis, transit connectivity analysis, and really determine which ones score the highest and how can we determine that to be kind of the best suited option, along with updating all of the infrastructure costs to be $2024. We want to be able to provide that, share that with our partner agencies. We can come back to this group, share it with our board and our partner agencies boards, and have some real candid discussions on how do they measure up and how can we kind of reduce and get it done to identify what's the most suitable option. Once there's a much smaller set of concepts, those are what could be considered for environmental clearance. And we would have those discussions with all of our partner agencies to make that decision together. Wanted to share a little bit about what we've been doing since the fall, which was a really exciting airport travel survey. Hadn't done this in over a decade, maybe even closer to 20 years. But it was an opportunity for us to collect recent travel data to the airport. collecting information from people who were going to the airport, at the airport, telling us how they were traveling there, telling us what they would like to use to travel there. We were collecting about a 4,500 sample set of responses that we could expand to the rest of the entire region. It's going to be vital for updating our transportation demand model that our agency uses for all of our regional plans and various projects, and really help us also with planning for this project. So it was a mix of face-to-face intercept surveys and also some self-administered online surveys where people over a period of about 2.5 months could provide us with their data as to how they were traveling to the airport at that time. And it was an interesting period to hold the survey. We got some Thanksgiving travel in there. We got some fog delays situations there. So we got a variety of perspectives, and we were banking on the fact that while there were some frustrated travelers delayed by the fog, they had time to give us some of their input. And so we appreciated it. Really preliminary insights, super provisional, but here's some a kind of recap of at least the intercept part of the survey, where over a couple of weeks, we'd exceeded our goal of about 3,500, collected nearly 4,000 responses. And nothing earth-shattering at the moment, but we learned that about 70% of the travelers were at the airport and using it for either personal or non-business travel versus 30% work-related. About 25% of the people were interested in giving us more information about their stated preferences and willingness to use new modes. And about 3/4 of folks are being driven or driving themselves to the airport. So we see some opportunity to expand some of their options and consider other alternatives in the future. We have some public engagement activities planned this year that we're really excited about. After having done kind of a roadshow of sorts to groups like this about the planning progress updates, we're going to be holding a partner agency workshop in the spring where we can present results of the airport travel survey, talk about the rail pare down or reduction process. We're going to be holding our first stakeholder roundtable with community organizations this March and get some input on both the near-term bus plans and also longer-term rail opportunities. And we'll also be holding some in-person and virtual public meetings that reach both a regional and an urban core downtown audience to get that mixed perspective. And I'll close with just sharing what our timeline looks like. We've completed our survey in the fall and winter, as I was just describing, and starting the analysis now and ramping up to do some of that public engagement in the spring and summer, collaborating with our partner agencies on near-term bus solutions for the airport connection, and then determining what our next steps could be for entering an environmental clearance phase if we're given direction by our board to do that. So I very much appreciate the time, and I'll happy to take any questions. It's a fun project to discuss.
Sounds good. Thanks, Marissa. Let's see if there's any questions or comments from the public.
We have no public comment, Chair.
Okay, any member comments or questions for Marissa? Anna.
I just have a quick question. Does the survey break down people who are traveling to San Diego by people who are traveling out of San Diego? Because it seems like the needs would be different.
Both. So we're capturing employees commuting to the airport, residents of San Diego leaving, and also arriving passengers that were maybe even destined for conventions and business travel. So all three.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? A couple of comments. Do you think you could get some bus information to the military working group members? There may be military installations that would be interested in knowing, so what is the connection at Old Town and how do I do it? Because sometimes it's just lack of knowing what's out there already. That's a great short-term fix to enhance that members, because if you're parking at the airport and near the airport is getting pretty pricey. And if you have a 7-day trip or something like that, that's easily over $100, maybe approaching $200 for parking. So certainly if people have the education on the options available, it makes your trip to the airport more reliable because you're not subject to freeway incidents that clog traffic and make you late. So if you have any information, I don't know if that's working through MTS or North County Transit District, but whatever we could get to our members here, they could distribute to their folks as they see fit about what are the options.
Of course, we'll work with them to do that, especially as we try to push more frequent service for this fall. That'll be vital marketing. No service is as successful as how you market it. So we wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yeah, if we don't know about it, we don't know what we can do. I appreciate your effort on this and thank you for your presentation.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to go on to item number 6. In 2024, the SANDAG Board of Directors approved a budget amendment that allowed federal funding to be used for a one-time flexible fleet grant program. This will allow jurisdictions in the region to explore new shared mobility services by providing some startup funding. Staff will walk us through the proposed grant program and scoring criteria. Today we have Emily and Jenny from SANDAG. Good to see you. The floor is yours when you're ready.
Great, thank you. It's great to see everybody who I used to work with when I supported the military working group. As a reminder, my name is Emily Doss. I'm an associate regional planner, and I'm joined today by Jenny Russo, our grants program manager. So as the chair introduced, we're here to share about the brand new flexible fleet pilot grant program, Call for Projects. And it's an opportunity for local agencies to, across the region, to pilot a flexible fleet in their jurisdiction. So let's start with a reminder of what flexible fleets are. So Flexible Fleets is an initiative that uses on-demand transportation services to move people locally or around the region. Riders can use these services to reach their local destinations or connect to high-speed transit. The goal of this initiative is to provide affordable transportation choices for all users while helping to reduce air pollution and congestion. So the flexible fleet categories include micromobility, which are small, low-speed vehicles such as e-scooters, bikes, e-bikes. This is often referred to as bike share or scooter share. And they also include van pool, car share, and ride share, which is a ride-hailing service such as Lyft Shared or organized van pool programs. They also include neighborhood electric vehicles, which are a type of microtransit service. They are lower speed electric shuttles used for short trips up to 3 miles typically, and they operate on a fixed route or an on-demand route. And then lastly, we have microtransit, which as I mentioned, is kind of an umbrella term where neighborhood electric vehicles fit into, and these are larger multi-passenger vehicles that carry 5 to 15 passengers and provide rides within a defined service area. As these services are typically reserved through a mobile app, SANDAG and public agencies work with the private sector to ensure that there are options for people without access to a smartphone or a credit card. And the San Diego region has seen a number of companies come and go in specifically the scooter share micromobility space. And we've seen a ton of excitement around NEV shuttles and microtransit in recent years as well. SANDAG has had varying levels of involvement with pilots throughout the region over the past few years. When the board of directors dedicated this funding to the Flexible Fleet program in 2019, we were able to provide financial assistance to early adopters in our region. This includes GoSide, which is Oceanside's third iteration of NEV services. We've historically seen a lot of success in this community, but because we don't have a stable funding source quite yet, it has had to stop a few times, pause service. And we're excited to see this service continue through the current fiscal year and hopefully for many years to come. And the Beach Bug built upon, the Beach Bug in Pacific Beach built upon our Mid-Coast Mobility Hub strategy, and it leverages SANDAG's investment and the region's investment in the Blue Line trolley extension. And this was a collaboration with the City of San Diego and the PB, the Pacific Beach Parking Advisory Council, and it ran from July 2023 to October 2024. So that pilot has ended. And our upcoming Southeast San Diego microtransit is our first microtransit partnership that will use larger vehicles, and this builds upon a transportation needs assessment from the Urban Collaborative, which is a local community-based organization who helped us compete for grant funding from the state at the California Air Resources Board. And this service will launch this summer. And then next here on the screen, you'll see several other pilots and programs that are have operated or are currently operating in the region. And I'd like to mention too that SANDAG has a flexible fleet task force who meet about bi-monthly, and we support local jurisdictions, share best practices and lessons learned, and provide guidance with implementation. Several pilot program administrators have leveraged our flexible fleet implementation strategic plan to compete for state funding. And we've been collecting data from all of these pilots, and it's integrated into SANDAG's open data portal online, where members of the public, jurisdiction staff, and more can download and analyze the ridership information on these fleets programs. All right, so after a long-winded explanation of what flexible fleets are, let's move into what we're here to share about today, the Flexible Fleet Grant Program. All right, so here on the screen, you'll see several preliminary ideas on flexible fleet project priorities from when we went to the mobility working group in May of 2024, as well as the flexible fleet task force in April of last year. We saw common themes around the need for financial sustainability, since there isn't currently a dedicated funding source to support these projects annually. Integration with transit was another big one. We've actually seen our highest ridership connecting to and from transit stations in SANDAG pilots. And we're hoping that all of these pilots will continue to influence travel behavior and help us meet our greenhouse gas emission reduction targets throughout the region. So then here's some more feedback from SANDAG's Joint Transportation Regional Planning and Borders Committee, which occurred last year as well. An emphasis on public engagement and rider engagement, sustainable funding, again, collaboration with MTS and NCTD, our transit operators, to leverage transit connections in flexible fleet service areas, and informed service zone planning. And in summer 2024, we worked with the Flexible Fleet Task Force on the specific grant program, definitions of the evaluation criteria, the scoring weight of evaluation criteria, eligibility requirements, and award amount. So they've been involved in the development of this program for the past several months. And our draft program goal is as follows. The Flexible Fleet Grant Program is intended to fund projects that expand shared mobility travel choices, enhance transit connections, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled. The grant program will provide initial funding to seed projects that can serve as models for the region and sustain operations following the expiration of the grant. Now I will pass it over to Jenny to provide a little bit more specifics about the grant program.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. So as you can see on this slide, we've taken all of the feedback from our Flexible Fleets Task Force and our Mobility Working Group and come up with a proposed eligibility for the program. So eligible applicants, as you can see here in blue, would be local, state, and federal agencies, as well as tribal governments, transit districts, and military institutions. In terms of eligible grant types, there would be two. The first would be service operations, which is, providing the actual service that you see out there. And the capital category would be things like vehicle purchases, software to support the infrastructure of the program, and any supportive infrastructure, so signage and things of that nature. In terms of sample eligible activities, you can see here, so direct operations of the service, so the microtransit, NEV, et cetera. Those contracted services, so if you're going to be using a third party to operate the service, as well as I mentioned, the vehicles, software or hardware that might be needed to have the program function, and then any supportive infrastructure, as you can see here. All of these services would need to be provided in the county based on the funding that we have. So in terms of funding, we have $4.5 million that we would be putting out through this call for projects. The maximum award for a single applicant would be $1 million. The funding is coming from the Federal Highway Administration, so there is a matching funds requirement embedded in the program. So applicants would have to provide at least an 11.47% match of any non-federal funding source to complement the grant. And they would also have to be able to follow the typical federal provisions, things like non-discrimination, Title VI, and ADA requirements. In terms of timeline, so this month and next month, we're soliciting feedback from all of our working groups. Then in April, we will be taking the draft program call for projects to our transportation committee and asking for their recommendation to the board of directors for approval. If approved by the board of directors, it would open a 90-day application period, and applications would be due in July. Between July and September, we would assemble our evaluation committee who would be reviewing and scoring all of those applications and bringing the funding recommendations back to the board in September. We'll probably see grant agreements entered into somewhere in the November timeframe, and services could begin as soon as the applicants are ready. We're anticipating probably about a 3-year time frame for projects, so they would last somewhere from 2026 to 2029. As provided in your attachment 1, we have the full evaluation criteria and our scoring rubrics. There's a lot more detail than you can see here on this slide. But the main takeaway here is the top 3 criteria in terms of weight is following what we heard from all of our stakeholder feedback. So financial sustainability, do they have additional funding, something to be able to sustain the program beyond the pilot program, as well as feasibility and integration with transit. So we're really trying to take that input and support it through our call for projects and to see that we can fund projects that meet that priority that you heard earlier in the presentation. So we're here today. We're looking for feedback from all of you on the proposed criteria and weight. So if you see anything in there that you think we might miss or anything you want us to highlight on, any questions that you might have, we're happy to answer those for you. And with that, I will turn it back over to the chair, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great, thanks. Let's check in with the public and see if they have any questions.
We have no comments from the public.
Okay, thank you. Members, any comments or questions on the plan? Yes, David.
So I've walked the ground with every base commander in our region. Their number one transportation issue is what they call the last 2 miles, getting from the base entry control point to their ship, their barracks. And so the question is, how do we collectively support that? You talk about military funding as one of your alternatives. I don't know in the current configuration how that would work, but certainly if there was a solution involving the last 2 miles, that might be more feasible. And maybe Anna and Jim have more to elaborate on it, but that is a nagging problem for base commanders. Over.
Hannah.
Yeah, I think this is one potential solution to connecting the transit stations that are outside of our fence line and then into kind of the vast installations that we have. That often is the challenge is that the buses cannot go on to base, but perhaps the micro transit is something that could be resolved in which the driver would have security access, and the only people on that micro transit would have to be CAT card holders and have access to the base. So it would be really exciting to see some sort of solution and reduce the impacts on our neighbors and provide opportunities for our military personnel to soften their commute. So exciting. Thank you.
Can we go back to slide 4, if you would? Let's take a list at those places that have programs in case they mean anything to those of us with installations near those things. I see Coronado, San Marcos, El Cajon. I can tell you we are starting on March 17th. We got a 3-year grant from SANDAG, so we're very grateful. And we're going to use that to integrate with the trolley station down there. So, and as you say, to integrate into the trolley system certainly helps also solve the 2 miles outside the fence as well as 2 side inside the fence. And I know, we know that transit goes inside the fence. So maybe there's a way to get people from the further regions, the Netherlands, to the bus stop or something on base to get people to work around.
I just wanted to make sure it was well understood that military is an eligible applicant. So on your own or in partnership with a local jurisdiction or transit operator, you are an applicant for this grant program. We've heard loud and clear from you about that last 2 mile problem and intentionally made sure that you were eligible to apply.
So it looks like that process starts roughly between April and July.
Yep.
With July being the deadline, so to speak, of these things.
Yep. So depending on our final presentation to the board and approval, we'll release all of that information and have it posted online. We'll have an information session for folks to come and hear more about the program closer to the application window, probably about a week or 2 in. And so we'll make sure to distribute all of that information to working group liaisons so they can distribute to you as well.
And in the meantime, if members of the group have questions, who's the point of contact? Should they go through Kate? Should they go directly to the project leaders? What can you tell us?
I mean, it'd be best to go through us. There's an email in the slide, but we'll get it. Any way that you send the feedback in, we'll be sure it gets to us.
Okay. So members, I saw on the website, there is a link to the presentation today, and the last slide in that presentation has the contact list. So, and you can contact Kate as well if you just forget what I just said. More and more of a challenge for me every day now. Okay. Any other questions on this particular item? All right. I think we're good for that one. Thank you both for your time and for your presentation. Always nice to hear when there's grant money available, especially for our military partners. Thank you. Okay, let's see, item 7. Oh, last year I joined some SANDAG staff on tours of each of the military installations in the region to better understand opportunities that be relevant to this group. It was a great tour. Thank you all who coordinated those tours. They really made an impact on just being visible. The military being visible at this kind of location. I also will be with you at least for another year. I've just been reappointed by the chair. So I'm grateful to do that so that you don't have a lot of turnover, have to do these tours year after year with new staff. So I enjoy working with all of you. So I'm glad to be here at least for another year. We had a number of conversations about the military working group priorities and focus areas. I think you've seen some of those fruits of that labor today in the grant inclusion. So I would like to maybe have some discussions on some topics at future meetings, including housing, housing needs, housing availability, housing plans that you know of. Many of you talked about ride-sharing programs, Uber and Lyft coming onto base, the issues around security, how far could they go on base, things like that. If you have any obstacles or hurdles, we'd love to learn about those things. And wildfire resilience, we certainly saw about that in January. So if you have any issues, concerns, needs, partnerships you think could be better, we'd love to hear about those as well for future meetings. So just some things to prime your pump on topics of things that might be interesting to all of us. All right, that's item 7. I guess because it's an agendized item, I should ask if there's any public comments on this item.
We have no public comment on this item, Chair.
All right, thank you. Any feedback or follow-up? Anybody want to add anything that they would like to see discussed at future meetings? David?
So Kate and I have already had a couple of discussions about infrastructure that's adjacent to bases that benefit both the community and the bases, and how we can integrate the planning and pursue OPN, other people's money, to pursue, to do the planning piece through execution. And so I think that would be a great topic to hit on.
Agreed. All right, anybody else with a wish list or topics? Okay, I think we're good. Well, if there's no other business, anybody have anything for the good of the order or Super Bowl predictions for next year or anything like that? I think we're good. It's 10:30. I'm going to adjourn this meeting. We'll meet next on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th of this year. And everybody have a good rest of your day. Thanks for coming.